the largest engineering, designing and infrastructure companies in the world, with revenues worth $20 billion. In his new role as chairman, he'll have plenty more to achieve. He's excited about the India opportunity. It is my pleasure indeed to be joined by Michael Burke, the CEO of AECOM. Thanks very much for being with us. I'd first begin by congratulating you about your new role. That's an elevation of sorts. But first up, you've been in India now for over 48 hours. Much has been written and said about the opportunity. How are things on the ground?
Supriya, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Things on the ground are exciting. It really appears to be a new day here in India as it relates to infrastructure. The excitement about the direction of the new administration is quite palpable here on the ground, and we certainly saw it from afar, watching it from the United States and from my position. But now here on the ground, I can feel it, and my discussions with both our clients, both in the public and the private sector, have really shown that.
You know, I'd like to speak to you about the smart sloganeering. You know, you've talked the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which is the Clean India campaign. There's a Clean Ganga campaign. Then, of course, there's this Make in India. So very smart sloganeering, a lot of publicity blaze. But as someone who sees this happen around the world in over 150 countries, how much of that is reality on the ground as you're seeing it? Now that you've been here, now that you're speaking to clients, how much of that is really converting into action on the ground?
Well, clearly, the sloganeering is the first level, but you know, take smart cities, for instance, which is sometimes an overused term and a misused term. But,
that's right.
But here in India, the government has made a focus on smart cities. And smart cities, for instance, the Dholera project, which is one of our projects along the Delhi to Mumbai industrial corridor, is a so-called smart city. And what that means is taking a much more holistic approach to the development of that city. That's a $7 billion project. And what it means is not focused just on one element of the development. And firms like AECOM that provide the entire array of services, from transportation to water to energy to urban development, putting all that together to reduce the friction in that society, to allow the society to grow more, to allow the GDP of that community to grow at a more rapid rate, and reduce the traditional friction that occurs in major urban areas.
You know, you mentioned some of this in passing in your previous answer, but if I may ask you, of the opportunities that are available, a Swachh Bharat, a Clean Ganga, a Make in India, smart cities, you know, industrial corridors, which are the areas of opportunities that excite you the most at this stage?
Well, every one of those that you've mentioned, I've had discussions with both public and private sector clients over the past 48 hours, and all of them are of interest to us, because as you look at the development of an infrastructure, you can't only look at any one of those individually. They're all inextricably linked to one another. And so the longer-term projects of cleaning the Ganges River is very important to us, and we've done work like that in major cities around the world, and whether it be the transportation sector, the smart city, whether it be the clean water, those are all things that will contribute to the growth of the economy here in India, and those are areas that are of particular interest to us, and expertise that we can bring from other experiences in other parts of the world.
You know, the reason why I ask you this question is that a lot of people who cleaned the Thames a while back were here to meet the minister who's going to lead the Clean Ganga campaign. India is very uniquely different in a lot of ways. Our opposition is very different, our fears are very different, our polity is very different. I'll just take this discussion away from the politics for a minute and talk to you about the ease of doing business. We are the emerging market darling. We are perhaps one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and yet we rank 142 on the list of doing business. Some things are horribly wrong here, aren't they?
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of room for improvement in every government around the world as it relates to business-friendly environments. But the important thing is the direction that the administration is taking. And from afar, watching it from afar as well as watching it now up close for the last 48 hours, directionally, everything is heading down the right path. And so that's what's most encouraging to us. And when I talk to other Fortune 500 CEOs about doing business in India, yes, it's been challenging in the past, but there's a sense of excitement about making it easier, making the regulations easier, making the tax environment easier, and we're starting to see that. And so we're most excited about the change and the progress from where we are today.
The reason why I ask you this question is, let's just pick up one project, the Make in India, which is the pet project of this government. It's got publicity like no other project has before. There are three or four things that will make in India possible: land, labor, power, capital maybe. Those 3 or 4 constituents have still not been addressed to the satisfaction of industry. Will you refute me on that?
So, listen, the Make India initiative means different things to different people. And one of the things that we need to do here is to make it easier for foreign direct investment. And we're certainly seeing it now. We have 2,500 employees here on the ground.
That's right.
And we believe that having a strong foundation of local talent that brings our global expertise from our global operations into the environment here will allow us to participate and create that Make in India. So Make in India for us means hiring local talent, taking that 2,500 employees. We've publicly stated that we're going to add another 1,500 employees to help develop the engineering talent here in India. So for us, it's creating a local talent, bringing our global expertise to it. Another aspect of that for us is the global Fortune 500 manufacturing sector. We represent around the world more than half of the Fortune 500 today, and helping them develop manufacturing facilities in various parts of the world.
Right.
So the large manufacturing companies that want to do business here, we expect to be able to partner with them to help them build their facilities here in India so they can participate in the manufacturing sector. We're seeing it now. We saw it with the recent change in the defense industry ownership rules, allowing up to 49% ownership by foreign companies in that. And so we're seeing all that moving in the right direction. And I think it's most important that we're seeing progress on that front.
But are you someone who's a little skeptical about the whole Make in India narrative in India? Because it almost seems to suggest that we want to make everything here. And some people are warning us against that. They're saying Make in India cannot be import substitution. So make what you're good at, promote services if need be, don't be obsessed with manufacturing. Is that an argument that buys favor with you?
You know, there's pros and cons to that, of course. I think finding the right balance of both the manufacturing sector and the services sector. And, you know, India's done a wonderful job over the years of developing their service sector.
That's right.
And the service sector, of course, produces higher paying jobs. It doesn't pollute as many of the manufacturing industries do, unfortunately. And so it's a proper balance of both. I don't think you can develop your economy on an entirely services sector environment, but it's a healthy balance. And what we are trying to do is to bring more of the services sector to India. And it's not just the engineering talent to do work on projects here, but we are importing work, engineering work, into design centers here in India. We have 2 design centers here that are doing work for projects outside of India, and those are the type of jobs that we want to create here. The service sector needs to be in balance with the manufacturing sector.
The government of India has now stated on record that the way PPPs were designed, they weren't really successful and they need to be rebalanced. The sovereign needs to take more risk. It has to be easier for companies to get out if things go wrong. What is the sort of experience that you'd want to share with the Indian government while it goes on to rebalance the PPP model?
So, first of all, the infrastructure needs around the world, and India is no different than the rest of the markets that we participate in around the world. There is simply not enough public sector financing to address all the needs of infrastructure.
That's right.
That is clear. And so it needs to be a marriage of the private sector and the public sector to address the shortfall of funding. So we're seeing that moving around the world in a direction of much more private sector. The United States has been slow to move down that path. Europe, Canada, Australia have moved much more rapidly with the P3 environment. So we have a lot of lessons to learn from those environments and bring those to India. But clearly, that is a direction. I'm hearing it from all of the government officials that I've been meeting with over the last 2 days, that the public-private partnerships is a strong focus of the government. And I think that the risk sharing is critically important. All the risk is not going to be borne by one party. It needs to be a shared risk model, and I have a feeling that the government understands that and is moving in the right direction.
Fair point indeed. The other bit that I would want to speak to you about, the starting point of any infrastructure or any investment or any project really is land. And land is a huge political hot potato. It has just about met the parliament's nod. A very diluted version of the land acquisition bill has been passed. I wouldn't want to go into the merits of what it entails or what it doesn't. But how crucial is land, and with the new land laws in place, how confident are you of projects now taking off?
So I'm quite confident of it. Everything that we are seeing is that the land issues are being dealt with quite readily. I understand all the bureaucracy issues that arise on that front, and it's a never-ending process. But clearly, the sense of the land issues around the Delhi to Mumbai industrial corridor zones has all given us hope. If we look at the Dholera project, we look at the Seabird project, where very large swaths of land are being developed for the benefit of the communities around them. So we're confident that's moving in the right direction.
You know, I cannot not ask you the comparison between India and China when we talk about this, given our infrastructure deficit and where China has gone. You operate in both countries. How different is the DNA in how we address infrastructure, both with us and across our neighbors?
Mm-hmm. So, you know, China has been a very different story. They move much more quickly as it relates to land development. They don't have the issues that the rest of the democratic world has as it relates to gaining consensus about the infrastructure projects. When they want to implement them, they implement fairly quickly. So China's done a very good job of implementing their infrastructure program over the past 10 years. We have 10,000 plus employees in Hong Kong and China, and so we're very familiar with that market. But it's a very, very different market than India, and there's pros and cons of both. But we participate in 150 countries around the world, and so
each one of them is so different from each other.
We see it all, yes.
The reason why I ask you on China is that China encourages a lot of fiscal incentives as far as manufacturing is concerned. You know, huge tax breaks, huge tax concessions. Despite the push that the government wants to give to infrastructure or to make in India, we haven't seen a similar fiscal incentive package being unveiled. How crucial are fiscal incentives for something like manufacturing or infrastructure to really take off?
They are very critical. I wouldn't suggest that manufacturing can't happen without them, but I will certainly suggest that tax incentives do drive capital allocation around the world in the private sector. And so to the extent that India is considering tax incentives to bring manufacturing activity or bring service sector jobs to the country, it will rapidly accelerate that growth. So no question, we see it around the world. We've seen very large industrial movements and R&D, research and development movements to countries like Ireland that have put in place great tax incentives for R&D. We've seen it in Singapore. So there's no question in my mind that will rapidly advance the growth in the country.
Do you believe India needs to do a lot more on fiscal incentives than it has to attract global manufacturing to come and take off here?
Two things. One is more certainty. It would be the first step. There's been some uncertainty around tax regulations, and more certainty is always helpful to companies that are making capital allocation decisions. To the extent that India provides more certainty on that, it'll reduce the risk and encourage foreign direct investment. So that's the first step. Then the second step is every country can do more around tax incentives. Reducing the tax friction in the capital allocation decision always causes capital to move more rapidly to that environment. And so there's room for improvement in India as well as every other country that we work in.
You know, our worst critics perhaps will not refute the fact that at least the Indian government is making the right noises around ending tax terror. That's what they call it, tax terror, and we want to end it. So they're making the right noises, but things on the ground are a little different. So, I mean, just 2 days back, Kane PLC actually was on the receiving end of a tax notice, which the government believes is an old case. Do cases like these shake investor confidence? Absolutely,
absolutely. Cases like that do shake investor confidence, and we certainly see it when I talk to other CEOs that are making decisions about investments in countries. That uncertainty causes pause, and so it is a hindrance. And to the extent we can eliminate hindrances or obstacles to investment and free flow of capital across borders, I think we're all going to be better off. So anything we can do on that front to eliminate that uncertainty is advantageous.
Let's move on to FDI, and you've mentioned that a couple of times in your interaction so far. India has opened, we in media call it the floodgates to foreign direct investment. Now, whether the floodgates will see plenty of big bucks coming in, we'll have to wait and watch. Defense has been opened up. Now, insurance has just got the nod. Various sectors have been opened up. Ports have been corporatized in this budget. The question that I'm asking is, from a global point of view, you're the global insider of sorts. You see things within India, and you also have the advantage of seeing it objectively outside. From a global standpoint, do you get this feeling that there is a sense of paranoia about foreign capital in India?
I certainly do not get that sense. No, I think just the opposite. We seem to, at least from my vantage point, we seem to be quite well received in India and encouraged. Whether we can eliminate some of the obstacles that slow us down, I think that would be helpful. But I don't get a sense for that.
That's encouraging, and that's a big vote of confidence when you say that. But, you know, while the Indian government is making the right noises, and it's perhaps being well received by people like yourselves who are going to come here, invest in infrastructure, bridge that infrastructure deficit, does the same amount of enthusiasm reflect in Indian bureaucracy? Because for long, the biggest bane of all infrastructure has been the red tape. And the red tape doesn't really happen at the policy making level, it happens at the policy execution level, and which is where the bureaucracy comes in. Do you believe mindsets are changing there as well, or are being forced to change at least?
Yeah, you know, India doesn't have a monopoly on bureaucracy. We see it around the world, right? Bureaucracy is something that we deal with. More than half of our business is in the public sector around the world. So AECOM has had quite a bit of experience in dealing with bureaucracy. But just giving you my sense from the last 48 hours and many discussions that I've had with our team on the ground here, is all of the right things are happening. People recognize that the bureaucracy has slowed progress in infrastructure, and everyone recognizes that India's growth, while it has been exceptional, will run into a ceiling unless it puts in place the right infrastructure to continue to fuel that growth. We've seen it time and time again in other economies around the world. You can't continue to grow at 7% GDP growth without having the infrastructure to support it.
That's right.
And so everybody recognizes that, and they recognize the bureaucracy is slowing the implementation of infrastructure. So there's a recognition of it within the Indian government, at least the people that I've talked to, and there's a sense on the ground that it needs to change. And so I'm excited about that positive direction,
So while you're excited, are things changing on the ground with the bureaucracy as well, and not just with the political class?
What I am seeing is a real sense of people wanting to get things done, and understanding the importance of infrastructure, and understanding the importance of creating a smarter city, and creating better transportation, and creating cleaner water. All those things are first and foremost on the minds of the political infrastructure here in the country.
You have publicly stated, and you also mentioned this in our interview, that you would want your headcount to go to 4,000 from the present 2,500 that you're at. Is it easy to find that sort of talent in India that AECOM hires?
Yeah, you know, one of the great benefits of India is you have an extraordinarily well-educated workforce. And so finding the workforce is quite easy. We have people that can communicate well in a global economy. They're well-educated, especially from an engineering perspective. And so all we need to do after we hire them is then share our expertise globally that we have throughout AECOM. And so AECOM has worked on some of the most iconic projects in the world, and as we bring that expertise to bear, we can train the talent that will continue to make in India. And it's the reason why we are now participating in 10 of the largest infrastructure projects across your country, because we're bringing that expertise and training the local employees. So we don't see a difficulty in hiring great talent here. You
have Deepak Parekh, one of the tallest leaders of corporate India, on your advisory board. What kind of an insight does he really bring to this? Because he's someone who's regarded, you know, as a person who's really had his finger in the pie of Indian infrastructure, understands it perhaps better than most of us do.
We are so fortunate to have Deepak on our advisory board. He has been a great mentor to me personally and a great advisor for our business here in India. He has a very, very broad global cosmopolitan perspective of the Indian environment, both the private sector and the public sector. And we are just so fortunate to have him on our advisory board. And I've spent the last 2 days with him, and I'm blessed.
You know, he's actually out watching cricket matches is what we are told. He's a huge cricket buff. But I have to ask you this question. Very recently in the past, he had said that there is a certain amount of impatience that corporate India is having with the government. It needs to move faster on reforms, move faster on decisions. Is that a sense of impatience that he conveyed to you? Is that something that you've had a chat on? Is that a sense that you've got from other members of India Inc. as well?
So Deepak is impatient about creating a great India, and he's passionate about everything he does, including improving the economy in India. So there's a lot of passion there, and it's all for the benefit of the country of India.
But you haven't experienced a similar impatience with other members of India, because we were talking about the ease of doing business, and you're saying the government is moving in the right direction. Is the rest of corporate India willing to give the government some more time? Not as impatient, not as passionate perhaps also as Mr. Parekh, but not impatient just yet?
No, I think they're willing to watch this administration and hope that they live up to all the great things that they've been saying in the past year.
When you say 10 of the largest infrastructure projects, I'm tempted to ask you, there is railways, there is roads, there's highways, there are hotels that you're working with, there are industrial corridors that you're working with. Which of these opportunities do you believe are game-changing in that sense, not just from an Indian point of view, but also from the point of view of foreign investors?
So game-changing, you know, they're all so important to the economy here. Whether it be the 6 metro systems that we're working on
right.
in some of the bigger cities, the ability to move people around those cities and get them from their homes to jobs reduces friction in that local economy. The Delhi to Mumbai industrial corridor, the ability to move goods across this country more rapidly, and some of the development, like the Dalera development that is springing out of that is extraordinary. So I can't pick one of them that is more exciting than the other. They're all exciting to me, and I don't think you can pick one infrastructure project and say that will change the entire economy. They're all, as I said before, inextricably linked to one another. We need to be focused on all of those at the same time, moving our employees around the cities more efficiently, moving our freight across the country more efficiently. We're working on 10 of your ports, your seaports, moving product in and out of the country efficiently. All of these things are critically important, and so they're all incredibly exciting to us, and I think exciting to our clients here.
I can't let you go without asking you this question. If things are so exciting, will we actually see AECOM get into the build, finance, and transfer activities here in India, maybe sometime in the future? Is that a possibility?
Clearly, that is our vision globally, to be able to design, build, finance, and operate infrastructure assets in all the markets that we choose to participate. Here in India today, we're doing primarily engineering, architecture, design, planning, and program management type work. We will, over time, move into the full suite of services to be able to build, operate, and finance assets. And we certainly anticipate doing that here in due course.
And which are the biggest designs coming out of the Indian Design Center that we should be proud of as far as global projects of yourselves are concerned?
So some of the big projects, one in particular is the King Khalid Medical Center in Saudi Arabia is being designed by our design center here. So we're doing some of the state-of-the-art healthcare facilities around the world being done right here in our design centers in India. It's just one great example of the great work that we're doing here, and why we're able to hire some great Indian talent.
I have a personal question to ask of you. You're a globetrotter, you visit many countries. When you get off at an airport and when you're driving to your hotel or to a business meeting, are there many sectors that you just look at and say, this should have been designed by us, this should have been built by us, this should have been, engineered by us?
Every single day, I look at projects and say, I wish that was ours. I mean, we have, at any given point in time, we have 25,000 projects going on around the world, 100,000 people working on exciting projects, and everything that we do, we believe, contributes to the culture and the communities and makes that community a better place. And it's what we're excited about. We feel
But as the CEO and the chairman, which is that one project that AECOM has designed that you want to sit back and say, oh wow, we did that?
Oh, boy,
I'll ask you to be partial to one project, and I know I'm putting you on the map on this one.
It's like asking which one of your children is your favorite. They're all my favorite, but there are just some exciting projects. Whether it be, we just completed the construction of the World Trade Center Tower in New York.
That's right.
The tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, sits across the skyline of New York is forever changed because of that project, and it's a real a place that has real meaning to me personally. So that would be one, but there are so many.
I can so imagine. Thanks very much for talking to us.
Supriya, thank you so much. Pleasure meeting you. Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.